Hi, I'm Nikolai, and in this video we are going to explore a variety of techniques artists can use to create printing blocks or printing stamps. As you can see here, I've created different printing stamps using ordinary cardboard which I've cut up from a box, and I've pasted foam sheets. You can see it's very flat from the side view, and I've cut out different shapes that I've put together to create a pattern. And this is ready to be used for printing. Here are some other designs I created. This one is looking more like a central symmetrical design, and you can cut these shapes very easily and create different patterns. From the side, it has to be a very flat level to make sure that the actual application of ink and printing will work. Here I've tried to use a hole puncher to create these dots and circles, and then I've cut different shapes, and there are a few gaps that I need to fill as well. This one is a very easy one to do. Basically you simply cut square shapes and you assemble them to create a chessboard pattern. This is a more random design where I used leftovers and I've cut up some stripes, heart shapes and leaf shapes. Here's a mini stamp which would look really nice as well. It feels really good. And I created this sort of organic geometric mix using pattern scissors, and that looks like a really nice design. The final one I did was I decided to make it look more like a picture, and you can see here that I created a little bit of a sunset with some reflection, a sailboat, there are some clouds, and there's an ocean. So I'm looking forward to try these, but for now let's start from scratch and see how you can make a block print stamp. So you need an ordinary piece of cardboard which I've cut. It's about 5 by 8 centimeters. You need a glue brush to apply glue. You also need scissors to cut the foam shapes, and if you want to use pattern scissors, that's optional as well. You can also use those. However, I'm just going to stick with the ordinary scissors. You obviously need some PVA glue as well. Okay, let's see how we can do this. First, I'm going to pour out some PVA white glue onto a tray so that it's easy for me to apply onto the cardboard later. I'm just spreading a nice thick layer of glue, and I'm going to make sure that I spread that all around the edges as well. This way it doesn't take such a long time to dry. So nice thin layer. And once that is done, I'm ready to now paste my shapes which I cut out. Here are some different foam pieces I've cut out. I've got some white. It's very nice, soft, and students love cutting these. It's very satisfying. And I'm just going to think of different shapes I'm going to cut. So I've decided just to go for the black. And right now, at this stage, I'm not thinking at all about what shapes I'm going to cut. I'm just going with whatever comes to mind. And I've decided to cut some long stripes to make sort of like a border or a frame on my printing block. So this is a little too thick, so I think I'm going to cut this in half. Just like so. There we go. And let's cut this one in half as well, because I think having a little thin border kind of locks the design in, and I don't know, it just looks nice. So here we go. Let's zoom in for a closer look. Now I'm going to paste these on the edges. This one should fit in the middle. Ooh, perfect. I didn't even measure it, but it's a perfect fit. So I think the other one should fit as well. So let's cut these off. I can do that right now while the shapes are still fresh and the glue hasn't hardened yet. There we go. And let's put this final piece right in between, just like so. Perfect. So I've got a nice little border to block the design in, and I've got these leftover stripes which I'm just going to stick in random areas. So I'm going for a little abstract kind of Piet Mondrian design here. I'm just speeding this up so you can see how the design process works. As I'm pasting these shapes, I am just randomly puzzling all these pieces together, and it's going to create a really nice printing block. You can do this with any shapes you like. I decided to keep it simple and just sort of fit shapes inside spaces. Here we go. Final pieces are added and the final design looks really good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Let's take a closer look. Now I'm going to let this dry, and I cannot use this for printing yet because the shapes need to dry. So in the meantime, I'm going to go with the one I made earlier, which is the geometric organic design, just to see how we can create a seamless pattern. So now, as you can see here, I've got a sponge roller. It's about 3-4 centimeters wide, and now I've got some primary colors, and I'm simply just going to dip my roller in. But what you need to make sure is that you spread the ink evenly onto the sponge roller. At this stage, the sponge is sucking up the ink, and it is still usable for long term. Usually students will notice that the ink runs out really quick. However, I just remind them that the actual ink is still there. It is just in your sponge roller. You can use different sponge rollers for different colors. Here, because the sponge, the foam shapes are red, so it's a bit hard to tell the difference, but you can tell the difference by slightly tilting your printing block and noticing the shininess of the ink that you've applied. So you've got to make sure that the ink is spread evenly and all the shapes are covered. As you can see now, you can tell the difference clearly between one half that is covered with red ink and the other half that isn't. Now at this stage you can very easily mix different colors, so I'm going to add a bit of yellow here. It will create a nice sort of orangey look once it's mixed with the red ink on my sponge roller. So let's give this a go and see how it works. At this stage, it's also really good to add some white because white thickens the consistency of the color and it looks really nice, but this isn't really necessary because the paper onto which you're going to print is white. So I think that really covers all of the areas. Now I put my printing block facing down on the piece of paper. All you need to do is just give it a gentle press, not too hard, because if you squeeze too hard the ink will spread, and if you squeeze gently, and let's reveal it, there you go. Now repeat the process, apply the ink and make sure that you place the next design to the side of the first print. You can also turn it upside down to create a little pattern, and once again give it a gentle press, just like so. Make sure you cover the corners as well, and while you're pressing, make sure you're not shifting the ink. There we go, another beautiful, clean, sharp design. Here comes the third one. Press, 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 and reveal. Now let's have a closer look. Okay, as you can see here, I'm skipping to the last one. So now if we look sideways, this is the best part, is revealing the design. And usually a lot of students wow at this stage because they love that feeling of the print stamp being made. Now you can see here I've made the first four on the top with the red and orange, and I'm going to use some blue to see if we can change the design a little bit and give it like a cool and warm color look. So that looks very obviously filled, and I'm just applying a bit of red to give it some color variation. Now this is going to be a very strong one because it's obviously blue, and look at that. Wow, nice and sharp. So to get a really crisp print, you have to make sure that you press, the pressure is very gentle. And one thing I can see here I'm adding a bit of white. One thing I remind my students is not to hammer the print onto the printing block onto the paper, because that usually shifts and moves the paper and the printing block, and it becomes all smudged and messy. So you can play with different color applications and get really beautiful effects. And the last pattern is applied to the edge, and there we go. So this is how easy it is to create a seamless pattern using one printing stamp you've made. And you can see by rotating it upside down, you've got this beautiful diagonal seamless pattern. Beautiful. I really enjoy doing this, and a lot of my students enjoy creating seamless patterns with their own original printing blocks that they made with ordinary materials. I really loved how it turned out. You notice that some prints are a little bit blotted. That's because I pressed hard perhaps, and the pressure squeezed the ink out. But that is okay. That's something you learn as you go along. This is just a practice experiment. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how do we take care of our printing block so that we can reuse it again in the future and make new prints. Now, do we wash it and run it under water? Absolutely not, because this is cardboard, and as you can see, if you run it under water, all the pieces would fall off and the cardboard would soften. Instead, all you do is you get a piece of paper towel like this, and what we're going to do is now we're going to continue making prints until the paper towel absorbs all the ink off the printing block. So just give it a gentle, do not hammer it, give it a gentle press as you would normally do when you're making prints, and just keep doing that until the ink has faded out and you can reuse the printing block again. So as you can see here, my second print, the ink looks already faded, and by the time I do the third one, it is showing that there's still some excess ink left that you can squeeze out off the foam sheets, because the foam sheets is also like a sponge. It absorbs the ink in and it creates really good stamps. So giving it a gentle squeeze again, as you can see now it is totally clean. We can now test it again, give it a gentle wipe, and there you go. Now this printing block is completely dry, clean, smooth, and ready to use again. Now, having done this process, I noticed that creating prints on paper towel actually looks really nice. So I decided just to give it another test. So I'm going to apply some ink again and just create a print on the paper towel itself and see what happens, because I think you can get some really nice sharp effects. So let's give it a go. So I'm just going to do one right here in the center. Once again, make sure that you're pressing gently, not hammering it, because hammering it would shift and move and create a mess. So press as gently as you can. Simple pressure makes sure you cover all the areas. And now let's see what it looks like when you print on ordinary kitchen paper towel. Wow, look at that. It is so sharp and clean, much better than printing it on paper. And the reason for that is because the paper towel is thin and it just absorbs the ink really well, and the ink sits sharply and you get those nice crisp shapes. And the texture of the paper towel looks really nice against the print. So actually making art like this on paper towel is really, really good. So once again, you can continue press printing until you get all the excess ink out, and therefore you're cleaning the printing block and it's ready to be used again in the future. So there you go. Oh, I think that works really well. Ready to use again in the future. Excellent, thumbs up. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.